my sermon today, oh, it's wrong note, sorry about that. No, I am just so tickled to be here. I just would like to say thank you so much for everyone that's here. I haven't even seen everybody that's here yet because I haven't gotten all the way to the back. But I just find it beyond belief that you all came to see me. And then the fact that this list has people on it that are the foundation of what Sunbury is all about. To put me as the latest name on the list. Although, if you look at the program, look at your program 1 second at the end. Allie was so kind to point out to me that if you could just put the deceased asterisk in the middle. I mean, I realize I don't have the asterisk, but I am so close to deceased, I don't want... Just a slight change, if you would. But seriously, I'm just really tickled to be here, and I thank you so much for coming. There are 5 people who are Citizens of the Year from Sunbury Broadcasting Corporation now. Roger Haddon Jr., who stood up with them, his father, Roger Haddon Sr., and Harry Haddon was a Sunbury Citizen of the Year, and Homer Smith. And Homer Smith was the Citizen of the Year about 30 years ago. So he was an announcer, and I've been lucky enough to meet his widow and talk to her with a couple hours of verbal history that she gave us about the radio station, right down to the dollar sign and the cents. So she was a bookkeeper at the radio station and kept great records and hasn't forgotten anything. And so that's going to be part of our archive record at the radio station. So I'm one of those 5, just tickled to be among any in this kind of a group. I have been lucky enough lately in the past 5 or 6 years that when Ann Raybuck is starting to put together the list of Citizen of the Year sort of suggestions, not nominees per se, she calls me and said, you know, who's in the news, who are you working with, who's kind of out there. So I've given her a bunch of names, and in a technical sense, I kind of half nominated myself for this, or suggested this, because she asked either this year or last year, and I said, well, there's, you know, these people are doing some things and different things, and there's a core group of people that are running the River Festival, people like Mel Purdy, and Megan Beck is here somewhere, and Slade is involved in this, and Jamie was one of our tri-chairs last year, even though there were 4 of us. And so, and I said, well, you know, this core group, but I said, if you want to honor the people that are doing River Festival, I am at the head table too. I'm not suggesting myself. So finally, Rue Rothamall and Ann said, well, we have to talk to you about the nominations. So I prepared a list of some other people that they could consider, but they came up to the radio station and said they had picked me unanimously. So they didn't need any more of my suggestions, although I think I gave you the list anyway, so, right, so you can have that next year. But it has been very exciting since they announced that and since we announced it. What Sarah Bartlett and I did was I told Sarah that she can write the story when they announce it, and I'll take the next day off so I don't have to say that the Sunbury Rotary Club Citizen of the Year is me. So I took the day off. Roger approved that, and so here we are. And it really has been pretty exciting. Honestly, so many people have come up to me. I have more Facebook friends now because of this. So I'm tickled for that. And but there is a very slight downside to this. So I thought I'd just start out my remarks by saying that there is a very slight downside, and that's, first of all, for about 2 weeks now, my lovely bride, April, has been saying, why is it that the Citizen of the Year can't find the hamper in his own house? And about 3 weeks ago, it's like, the Citizen doesn't shovel snow? Is that what I'm detecting here? So that's the other downside. The other thing is, I don't do much in Northumberland. I help out with pine knotters at the pierogi stand, and so no one ever sees me. I just sneak in the back and help them make pierogies, and then I leave. But every so often, the folks that are on the Kiwanis Club say, you know, Mark, if you're ever interested in doing some more work, we have some openings here for you. So, so that's sort of the downside. But April's sort of alluding to something that might be interesting, and maybe Mrs. Gibbs knows a little bit about this, and that's who I really am. You know, I think these things under the proclamation are wonderful. I'll talk about frivolous resolutions in a moment, but if you listen to On the Mark, I rail against them all the time. But, of course, Linda Schlegel.
I did ask.
Right. Linda Schlegel Culver, she saw me at the Fireman's Banquet a couple of weeks ago and says, you know, there's a tradition, your wife will be proud, the American Legion likes, or the the Rotary likes it if this string of citations from Harrisburg continues. So this will be the 30th citation for the Citizen of the Year. So I said, okay, well, I don't want to stop that. But if you can stop all the frivolous resolutions next year, that would be okay with me. But anyway, so some of these people know who I really am, and the people who I work with, the reference to the shoes is that I typically just kick off my shoes in the morning and don't put them back on until about 5 or 2 o'clock or so when I'm leaving. So that's what that's a reference to, is I don't wear my shoes in the building. There's actually one funny story that relates to that, and that's that when I was in one of the lay worship classes about 10 years ago, we're in the front row of the class, and there was a professor from Gettysburg that was talking. This was at a local church, and a woman that I know, Ricky Stringfellow, leaned over to me and said, "I only want you." And I said, okay, well, I thought this is a little strange. She and I are friends, but she's widowed, so you never know. And plus, it was Valentine's Day. It was Saturday, February 14th, so I thought, okay, well, she's just kind of saying a little Valentine's remark. Well, my hearing is shot from wearing headphones, so I leaned over just to triple check to see what she said, and I said to her, "Well, I only want you too." And of course, now the professor's right in front of me, right where Lisa is now, that distance, and she starts to laugh. And a little while later, I whispered to her, I said, "What's so funny?" She says, "All I said was that you kicked off only one of your shoes. Why only one shoe?" So that's between my hearing and the fact that I apparently only kicked off one of my shoes instead of both, that had happened. But these people see me walk, the staff at the radio station sees me walking up and down the hallway in my stocking feet all the time. And my lovely bride will surely tell you that no amount of Clorox can get the white socks clean that I walk around with in the building at the end of the day. But I'm alluding to this because the fact that I don't hear it very well, just as my father does, perhaps, or does not, as it were, is sort of describes who I really am. And that's what I thought I would tell you just a little bit here tonight. The fact that April's pointed out for the past couple of weeks or so, with the Citizens of the Year, I have to talk about her for maybe the longest amount of time, but honestly, anything that I was when I met her, she doubled and said, you can do more, you can be better, you can shorten your sermons and still get the point across, whatever it happens to be. She said, that we can just keep progressing together. And I'm sorry that she can't be here tonight, but she is one of the people in my life, and really just the people of the first, 5 rows here would be enough to tell you that you always hear in that romantic movie where she completes me. Well, honestly, April is the person that has refined me and completed me, and has said, and just been 100% supportive all the time. You read this list, it sounds a little bit worse than it is, all these things that I do. Most of it you just do one day, and then you don't do it again for a year or something, so like reading to kids at the library. But she is completely supportive. And I think the perfect example that describes this was when the Northumberland County Prison caught fire. We were supposed to have dinner together, and we were going to go to the gym together, and of course, she, as she has done many times, said, "Where's Mark?" So, but when I came home at 7 o'clock that night, she met me on the back porch and took my coat off and hung it out there and said, "Sorry that you had such a long day, had saved dinner for me," and just completely supportive all the time. And that's what makes this possible. I am very bullish on Sunbury. I've said that a number of times. Even though when I was first reporting for WKOK, I was at a zoning hearing meeting one time, and somebody asked, "Where's the nicest neighborhood in Sunbury?" And somebody yelled from the back, "Norrie." So I said, "No, that's not true. We can work on making Sunbury proud," and really we've worked to do that at the radio station. But April, completely supportive all the time. When I told her that, she didn't cry at all when I told her about the Citizen of the Year stuff. But when she said I was getting the citation from Linda Slagle Culver, she finally teared up a little bit and said, "Well, that's wonderful, so good for you." So I accept that on behalf of her, because she's proud of this. So she really deserves a lot of the credit. She promises me that if I say nice things, she'll take me to the Lewisburg Freeze this weekend, so we'll be good there this weekend. So Other people that have sort of made me who I am, I mentioned my father, World War II veteran that he is. You see him at all the functions taking the picture. Is a very active, 93-year-old now, and has been my mentor in terms of relaxing my whole life. He said he gave up stress and being anxious one time for Lent and never took it up again. So that's been my motto all along the way. And a sense of humor. I'm just going to tell you one story about Dad, and this is that a couple of years ago when it was I think my 50th birthday, and Dad always calls you if he doesn't get a chance to see you on your birthday. So it was one of those, my birthday's in July, so it was about 100 degrees that day, and we had read on the radio as part of the advisory for the heat that you should check on the elderly. So he calls me on my 50th birthday and says, "I'm checking in to check on the elderly, ha ha ha." So the message was on the answer machine when I got home, so thank you, Dad. But seriously, if he taught me anything along the way, other than to hunt, it was that don't worry, just let life happen. So that's something I can say about him. Mom, she is, let's see, what can I say about Mom? She is an active volunteer at the senior center. She too active and eager and running around, and the only way that she will go to the senior center is if she teaches computer classes there. Doesn't quite concede that she is, that some of your friends may be there, but very interested in going there. So there's one story about Mom that I think sort of emphasizes that she's not your typical mom. I got a call from her about 2 weeks ago on the phone, the answering machine, and I guess she had a cold or whatever, but it said, "Mark, please come over, or when you come over, call me before you come over. I have to talk to you right away." Of course, you know, your mother's 80-something, and I'm thinking, oh, you know, this is going to be a dilemma. I called her right away. April calls me at work and says, there's a message on the machine, you should call your mom right away. So I call over there. I am out of computer ink, and if you are coming over, stop at Staples. And then she says, "I will text you the proper ink so you'll have it." So, and actually, I should say something about Dad accepting. Dad has a cell phone too now. The pivot point in Dad's getting a cell phone was when he found out they all had cameras. And then he said, "Oh my gosh, well I have to have one of those." So now he has a cell phone too. So some of my family is here. Lisa and Phil and Christine and Darcy, my sister, and Doris, my stepmother, are all here. And Jim Snyder, who we adopted tonight, so thank you for coming up here. Very much appreciated. You know, I don't know that we had the Norman Rockwell scene growing up, but it sure seemed like it to me. You know, when I was growing up with it, we were all having fun. I don't know about sibling fights, but I just don't remember any. Maybe the sisters had them among themselves, and maybe the brothers, me and my brother might have, but I certainly don't remember any dilemmas when I was growing up, and just had a wonderful childhood. And we went out to play without helmets, and we're all here to talk about it. So we survived that, but just, you know, everything in my life was, you know, nearly perfect as I could tell growing up, so I never had any of the dilemmas that maybe some people might want to talk about. One quick note about Darcy, she's a real estate agent, so if you have any listings that you'd like to see. Although timing isn't everything, she got into real estate in 2008, right? So the timing's not perfect, but I thank my family for being up front here. My colleagues from the radio station, Roger Jr. is here, and Than and Margaret, and the rest of the folks that I work with. I'm going to name a few, but I'm not going to name everybody. Allie Stevens is back there, turn around. The most prolific writer in the world. She is the person, most of the news stories that you hear, I would say she's probably written. She is to the newsroom that Paul was to the New Testament, so we very much appreciate that. Sarah, who's doing the videotaping today, I always say I raised her from a pup. She does not love that reference. But Roger Jr. had the insight when she just graduated from college and sent it as a resume, and I looked over it and then talked to her and say, this is a real diamond that isn't even in the rough, that is just ready to be utilized and to give it an opportunity, and did so. Now we are losing Sarah at the end of this month. She's going on to California, so she'll be out in the West Coast doing hopefully a good reporting, and and she's carrying her integrity out there. So we miss her already. Mark Mahoney is here, our IT guy. We raised you kind of from a pup too, so we do appreciate that. He too is leaving, but these are some of my good colleagues. And Alicia and I think we probably have a great radio show inside us where nobody ever gets to hear it but us. I do the newscast at 10, 11, and 12 in the morning on 94KX, and at the end we get to talk about whatever we want. It is the highlight of my day. I don't get to listen to Allie's show, so as far as I'm concerned, it's probably the highlight of the whole radio station today. I don't know about that, but I'm sure the other previous hours in the morning are good too. I just don't get to listen to them, but we think it's a great start to the day, so we have fun. And finally, did Joe leave? Joe McGranahan? Oh, that was over there. Okay, I'm sorry. Sit up straight, will you, young man? Come on. Joe's one of the people that I met about 23 years ago, and well, 23 and a half plus another month and a day, but not that I've kept track of it. Joe is the mentor to have, because the funny thing was that when I first met Joe, I just read Tom Peters' book, In Search of Excellence. I said, isn't this fantastic? I'm working at a place now where that is the mindset of the whole company. Is just whatever we are doing today, we can probably do it even better tomorrow. Whomever we're serving today with the radio station, we can probably do even better tomorrow. And Joe also made sure that the salespeople were selling so that it made a profit for the family and the operation and the other employees. So I owe a lot to him, because there's that phrase, in search of excellence, that portrays Joe right there. He's chaired the CSVT task force, and as you know, we're going to cut the ribbon. He's desperately afraid it's going to be the Joe McGranahan Memorial Highway. We hope it's not that, but it looks like we're going to beat you by a couple of years there, so hopefully that happens. Thank you. And then I'll give you heck on Monday on the radio, and you can give it right back, so I appreciate that. And talk a little bit about Roger Jr. He is sort of a hands-off leader, so when you hear from him, you probably think that you probably have done something wrong, but usually it's just a good suggestion or something that would make the station even better. But he is carrying out the mission that was set out by his father, Roger Haddon Sr., and that is a mission that he once stated in an interview with us, and I'm going to paraphrase this and not get it quite right, that the mission of the radio station really has been to super serve the Valley, and that if we make $1 or $2, that's just an excuse. And if we're a profitable business, that's just an excuse, but the real mission is to serve the Valley. So two things to one I would say about that. One, I've tried to carry that on without any concern as to whether we've made any money or not. So. And also, honestly, you talked about some of the things that I've done. 75% of them I've done through the radio station, and sometimes on Roger's time. So the people that ask us to do things or ask to come on the radio, or the nonprofits that Peggy Reichenbach talked about, it's just because I'm perfectly willing to say yes to anybody who has an important viewpoint, whether I agree with it or not. Now, if you're anti-fracking, all the better, but we'll take anybody at the radio station. So. Roger Sr. set the tone. He used to call me on the radio, or call me on the phone and say, Mark, the balloon went up without you again. And that meant that you had missed the boat on something, and he would set us clear. But honestly, just great. Yeah, you can hear him saying that. Oh, just as plain as day, I can hear him on a landline phone. Mark, the balloon went up without you again. You missed the Rotary story. You are the Citizen of the Year. Why can't we report on this? I mean, it's just there. And of course, his mother, Lois, would give us grammar checks. That was probably the most frequent reason. And I was terrible at reflexive pronouns. I didn't even, and to this day, I don't really know what they are. She would say if we had said something on the radio, whether it was wrong or not. Now, they both passed on, but they are just a tremendous part of the legacy of the radio station. And anything they did for the community, I just helped to try to continue it. And that's what I've done in the newsroom. Finally, and back to just a few things about me. I help Sunbury Revitalization Incorporated out because it's a lot of fun. They give you a free lunch, and when they signed me up, there was a form that you filled out that said, you know, what do you like and what do you dislike about Sunbury, what you changed. I put that, what do you like about Sunbury? I said, well, Kathleen Persing. I said, well, that's the best thing about Sunbury. So we got to work with her on some of the SRI committees. She's on Lightfest. Sorry, Mayor, you have to hear this here tonight. the other thing they said is that most of the people that would serve on SRI or on the River Festival Committee do 8 to 10. And I thought, well, that's not too bad. It sounds like a felony, so 8 to 10, you can get a lot longer with that. Some felonies go up to 20 years, so that's why I did that. Some other folks asked me a couple of weeks ago why I did not go into TV. And I had serious conversations with some television stations back in the day because, you know, I was interested. I sort of thought that there might be a sequence that people follow where they work in radio, and a lot of people had done that, and then went into TV. But every time that I would talk to a news director or one of the producers or some of the reporters in the field, they say, well, they get up in the morning, they send them someplace, and they do a great package, and they turn it in, and then they go home. And they get up in the morning and they do a great package. And if there's one thing I've learned in this valley and in this radio station and among all of you who are here tonight, is that if you exert yourself in this valley, you can make a difference. And that you're not just putting in your time and you're not just handing in packages, and none of you go home at 5 p.m. and all of you have done what you can do to help this, the whole central Susquehanna Valley, to help your friends, to help your neighbors, and that's why I stayed in our area. We did a series of stories with the Daily Adam. Jan Tippett and Roger envisioned this series called Stayers, and we fleshed it out in the newsroom where we talked about why people stay in the valley. And Ryan Unger sort of facetiously said, well, I think it's because when you're here and you work to promote the valley, you're a big fish around here. I thought, well, that's kind of an unusual comment, but the more we thought about it, that's it. That's personifying this idea that when you work in this valley, you can help make a difference and that your work matters around here. Alicia knows this. She went to an elementary school last week, and the kids were just tickled pink that she was there. And you know that it made a difference in their lives, and she talked about radio. And just as I look across the room, all the way to the back of the room, I know that the doers in town are here. So honestly, I just think that that's the mindset of WKOK. That's my mindset at the radio station, and I know that it's yours too. So I guess the last thing I'll say is Ann had asked me if I had any kind of a philosophy. I don't know. I didn't really have an answer then, but I do remember one thing. I was listening to a book. I listened to book tapes. Barbara Brown Taylor, she's a theologian and pastor, and said most people can't find the starting line in their life because they're standing on it. And I thought about that, and I thought, well, that might apply to me, because I have never said that I can't wait to get done with this so that I can do something else, or I can't wait to be finished at WKOK so I can go someplace else, or I can't wait to be finished with the River Festival so that we, well, I guess I have said that. But honestly, I've always thought that this is our life. This is my life. I'm on the starting line, and we're in it now, and that there isn't a point in the future when I am going to start. This is it, and you're all part of it, and I'm just flattered beyond recognition. I thought before I would end, I'd tell you some of the funny things that we've said on the radio. Joe McGranahan, who is a master at making up words, he doesn't think of himself as that, but I nurtured the skill in him a little bit. Said, a person who's a fake but very smart is disingenuous the other week. So these are some of the words we use on the mark. He said that some things, because they're a little hard to understand, are a little Kevin-y, making a reference to Kevin Hur. He said some things that are very rude have a high level of rudidity. So, of course, and I always say that you can call us telephonically or email us emailically. So he said, well, sometimes people can watch us webcamically. So that's another way that you can get through. And then he decided that that wasn't enough. He said the last way is that you can contact us smoke signally. So, you don't even remember saying these things, do you? But I write them all down. So, and the last thing that I have is that we've said some funny things on the radio inadvertently. And these are things that we put into copy. And Allie, you have never written any of these, okay? You've never stabbed anyone in the alley. Oh wait, we did do that this week. Never mind. But these are things that we've read on the radio that we probably would want to take back. One time we said that there was a fire in the wee hours of the morning, and it was Roger Sr. who called us on the radio, on the phone, and said, "Do you know why wee hours of the morning, Mark? And I said, I thought about it, okay, no, let's forget that, we're not going to say that. He said, just say the early morning hours. We had one time said on the radio that a man was charged with criminal mischief. What happens is when I would go to the magistrate's office, I would put down initials for these things as you'd write them down. This is pre-fax and pre-electronics, so you would just write down what somebody was charged with. So I said this guy Middleburg was charged with CM, and then when I got back to the station, I said that he was charged with criminal mischief. Well, he called us and said, no, you have it wrong. That story's wrong. I would like a retraction. It isn't a misdemeanor charge of criminal mischief. It's a felony count of corruption of minors. And I want a correction. So I said, well, everybody who we might slight on the air that asks for a correction gets it, so we corrected that on the radio. Someone in our newsroom once reported that a single armed suspect robbed a gas station. So a single or just one? Okay. The police chief in Bloomsburg reported by using WKOK when the Women's Center was thinking of moving in Bloomsburg, he opposed that because he thought if they moved, people would know where it was, and you're not supposed to know where the Women's Center is. And he fought hard to make them stay, but they ended up being able to move. And afterward in an interview, he said, the most aggravating thing is that these women have a mind of their own. He took that back the next day. So. It was me who read on the radio that a motorcyclist who was hurt in an accident was not wearing a seatbelt. And we have said on multiple times that people have been stabbed in the alley, which I don't know if you envisioned that. It sounds very painful. I said on the radio a couple of years ago that a man was thrown from a car and landed in Geisinger. So. Long trip. So, half of what I do at the radio station is write down things that we do wrong, Roger, so sorry about that. It was not us, another radio station, but we read it out loud too. Sent us a piece of copy. A man had threatened to kill somebody, and he had done this on multiple occasions, so we read on the air that he threatened to kill the man several times. We tried to prove that we never take anything from the newspaper, but one of us once read that so-and-so was arrested and pictured left to right is the defendant. So we had to take that back. Let's see. I announced on the radio, this is when I just started as news director 25 years ago, that the Philadelphia Sixers lost last night because of erotic shooting. And you know the funny thing? That nobody would catch that today. They would think that's perfectly plausible. And the last thing, and this wasn't at this radio station, this was where I used to work up at Williamsport, they had an ad for a nursing facility. And they said in the ad that one of the beauties that one of the fun things there is you can bring your grandchildren over and you can do whatever you want. And the ad says, and you have to picture this, it sounds like an elderly lady talking to another elderly lady, and she says, it's wonderful, the kids come over, the kids will bake cookies, and then we'll eat them. And another one kind of alluded to that, the same series of ads says, the kids will come over, we'll do some art, we'll have the kids over, and we'll hang them up. So that's kind of, is that the, is that the end of the line? Okay, all right, well that's it. A couple more sentences, if I can, please, about the fact that you all know who I really am, and you honored me anyway, and that's what makes me just honored beyond belief to be here tonight. So thank you very much. Thank you. I will see you in the years ahead. Next year you'll have 16 people standing up in this crowd. Stand still with us, so hang in there, brother. So now he's the lone man in a field of asterisks there, and I hope you're here. And the only reason I gently rib him is because if he were up here, he would do the same to me in a heartbeat. Thank you very much. I really appreciate you all being here. Make sure that I get a chance to see all of you before you go. Thank you very much.